Well, hey there. Today is Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. It is day 543 of alcohol retirement. We had a little bit of rain yesterday come through. Something of interest is something that you don't normally see, or at least I don't recall it in recent memory since my son Tyler moved out to Seattle, Washington over 2 years ago. But they've got this atmospheric river that's coming in on the West Coast, specifically affecting Northern California and Oregon and Washington State. And they've got like hurricane force winds up in there. Fortunately for him, he's in a location in the city that did not lose power last night. It did blip and caused him some internet issues, but otherwise everything was good as of his last posting, our time around 2:30 or so in the morning. But yeah, that's interesting. You know, we're always the ones, especially over the last several years and even this year, where we had to deal with hurricanes coming up, knocking power out for several hours and massive destruction in the southern parts of Georgia and other states. Helene, and then whatever the name of that one was, it starts with an M. I'm drawing a blank right now, but went into Florida. So to see something like that for the Pacific Northwest is interesting. I'll try to keep this one brief. A couple of things on my mind. So it's no secret, you know, I'm 54, will be 55 in January. And, you know, I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an anxious person, but at the same time, you know, I grew up as an only child, which you're probably thinking, oh, hell, that explains so much, if you didn't already know. But I was a very shy kid, and things that put me on the spot or could potentially embarrass me just petrified me, mortified me. I think I've talked about some place that I've talked, written, hell, it starts to all blend together. I have been doing this since 2011. You know, having to get up in front of the classroom to give an oral book report. And that was basically like the 2 weeks prior to that. Once I got the assignment, it was like living hell for those 2 weeks. And, you know, I was so nervous the day that I stood up there to give the oral book report, I probably could have threaded a running sewing machine, as the joke goes. But as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot more comfortable in my skin. You know, that's not to say that things don't necessarily embarrass me, but I take it more in stride. And I like to think that I'm a lot less anxious. And here's one thing that I've also noticed, that when you retire from alcohol, once you finally get all of that out of your system, at least for me, the anxiety kind of quiets down a little bit. Because whenever you're on the sauce, you're not anxious about anything. I mean, it's all good. You are the proverbial 10 feet tall, bulletproof. Nothing's going to touch you. If you do some stupid shit that's very embarrassing at the time, it's not going to be embarrassing to you then, because woohoo, you're damn drunk. Everybody knows you're drunk. You're the life of the party. It's a good time. People aren't laughing at you. They're laughing with you. That kind of nonsense. The day after, when you finally sober up and you've got that residual funk or whatever, and your brain starts going, wait a minute, what the hell did I do last night? And it will make you very, very anxious. So having not alcohol in my life anymore, I really don't face that. And I'm going to connect anxiety and being anxious to panic attacks. Panic attacks are not something that I can recall ever really truly experiencing. Or at the very least, maybe I didn't realize what they were. I mean, I've always seen on television and, in the TV shows and the movies and what have you, when people have panic attacks and the methodologies of going through and trying to calm down and finding a calming place and all of that kind of stuff. And I get it. And I don't think any less of those people. Of course not. I mean, it's something that you can't really control. I experienced yesterday, and at the time, I couldn't figure out what was going on. And the more I got to thinking about it yesterday, I think I have finally deduced that it was probably a panic attack, which is so weird. And I don't know where it came from unless it has something to do with a lack of control. Because you can ask my wife, I am a control freak. I like things that I can reach, I can touch, I can control. It's the reason why I am the one in control of our money. That's not to say that I rule with an iron fist, but I'm having to make sure that every penny is accounted for and everything is paid, and projecting out, especially as being a one-man person in a company that is the only livelihood we have. I am very much a control freak when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I don't know if this is connected to potentially feeling a lack of control, but here's what happened. So I've been working with this client, and we've been getting these iPads ready for a new initiative that they're starting in the business. And of course, I'm going to keep all of this vague because I don't want to tell you who the customer is. But it's going to deal with some advisors, and it's going to deal with some technicians. Let's put it that way. And there's data that has to be captured, and they need to be somewhat mobile. So we're implementing this initiative using iPads. And, keep in mind, I've had this client for coming up on 10 years now, actually, getting close to it. And their Wi-Fi infrastructure has been upgraded at least twice. And I always try to use, the best equipment that I can get that at a good price point. And, my friend Ben and I both like to use Ubiquiti gear. So in this particular area, that infrastructure was upgraded within the last year. It's been working really, really well. And so I wasn't concerned about any of the Wi-Fi issues. The tech spec document that was provided wanted, for lack of a better way of stating it, I could tell that it was written somewhat by a non-technical person. All they knew is that they needed Wi-Fi access. They needed to be able to access certain URLs, and et cetera, et cetera. And one of the weird things that they said was, now, if you keep in mind, if you know anything about Wi-Fi, the old standard is 2.4 gigahertz. That goes all the way back to the original 802.11b, 802.11a, all of that. Actually, I don't think it was 2.4. Anyway, it's immaterial. So 2.4 was the original. At best, 11 megabit. That was back in the day when the blue little Linksys router was the de facto standard for an access point. And of course, then you had came along the 5 gigahertz, which gives you shorter distance but gives you more bandwidth. And now we've got 6 gigahertz, which is Wi-Fi 7. So on their tech spec, they basically said they wanted to know what the SSID name and password was. And they said they either wanted it to be a 2.4 or a 5, but not both. Now, at the time, I thought that was peculiar, but I was like, okay, whatever. And so the cool thing about the Ubiquiti and a lot of other setups like this is you can do multiple SSIDs. Now, the SSID is basically the Wi-Fi network name. When you go to connect to Wi-Fi and you see a name in a list that you can connect to, that's called an SSID. Don't ask me what the acronym stands for right now. I can't tell you. I'm not going to look it up. So I created a specific one for this initiative. And I put it on 2.4 because 2.4 was going to give me the greatest distance because they have to cover a pretty large area. And that was it. I created all this stuff. I got all the iPads set up. I delivered all of the stuff to the client last week. And then this week, they had their folks coming in to do the training. And I guess they didn't get here until yesterday. I figured they'd start on Monday, but apparently they didn't. They started yesterday, Tuesday. And I get a call from the manager of this department, and he said, they're running speed tests, and it's atrocious. Something to that effect. It's terrible. And I'm like, okay, what are they getting? And not long after that phone call, I realized I couldn't breathe. I don't know. It was so weird. I mean, I got up, I started walking around my office, and I'm trying to take these huge breaths, and I'm starting to shake for some reason, and I don't understand what's going on. And so I'm trying to calm myself down, and I'm trying to have a conversation with this guy. And they're reporting back, well, we're only getting, it was an abysmal number. And I'm like, well, where are you testing against? All this other kind of stuff. And it was like, yeah, this is just not workable. And I'm like, well, there's nothing wrong with the Wi-Fi. What the hell is going on here? So I was like, okay, I created this specific SSID for this. Oh, there go the geese. 1, 2, 3. There's 6 of them in formation. All right. So I created this special Wi-Fi network just for this, but it was 2.4 only. I said, okay, let's try this. Flip over to your normal one. Try that on an iPad and do the speed test. So he hung up, and then he called me back a minute or two later, and he's like, yeah, that's like 200 by something or whatever. And I was like, okay, well, considering the max capacity of that connection coming into that building is 200 by 200, that's pretty good. I said, okay, well, the only thing I can think of is they specified on their tech documents that they wanted 2.4 or 5. So I'm going to add the 5 back to that one, and then y'all can test again. But during all of this, the end result of all of that is immaterial to this discussion, but during all of this, like I said, just within seconds of that phone call, I started having trouble breathing, and I was gasping for air, and I was trying to take these big gulps of air, and I started shaking. And when I finally got off the phone and I could sit down and I could finally get my breathing under control, I was like, what in the fuck just happened to me? And the best I can figure is I was disconnected to this. I'm remotely, I'm only 15 minutes away, but I guess there's a couple of factors. I get the phone call at roughly 11:45. I'm about to go inside and start working on lunch, because my wife's plans of making lunch kind of went south because she got sick, and so I was like, okay, well, no big deal. I cook lunch a lot of times. And so there was this lack of control, I guess. I guess that's what it was. It was so weird. And like I said, it took me several hours of just gnawing on that in the back of my mind yesterday as to, was this a panic attack? And if so, why? And I think I've come to the conclusion that yes, it was a panic attack. The why is a little less certain. Other than, like I previously said, I'm wondering if it was I suddenly had this loss or lack of control over a situation that I'm like, I put all this effort into it, all this stuff's working. Because I even asked, I was like, is anybody else having any issues with the Wi-Fi? And I was told, no, it's just on this network on these iPads. And I'm like, well, I can't control the fucking iPads. I mean, there's 12 of them. How many have you tried it on? I mean, there's always a possibility you got a busted, Wi-Fi chip or something. I mean, I set them all up on my network. I duplicated that Wi-Fi network name on my internal network to make the transition from setup in my office to use in theirs seamless. Not once did I ever think about doing a speed test on them, because I was like, everything's moving like it's supposed to. I could download apps. Everything was working great. I went to a couple of websites. Like I said, I never did a speed test. I didn't think I needed to. So I sent, after that, I started working on lunch, and I sent the guy a couple of more texts. I never got a response back. I was like, look, if that solved the problem with that Wi-Fi network, then here's the deal. We don't actually need that one. We can delete it. You can use the one you normally do for everything else, because there's no need to carve it out. You just let me know. And of course, I constantly monitored all the devices in the Ubiquiti controller interface all afternoon, and just to see what was going on in the signal levels and all this other kind of stuff. Because it really, really bothered me, apparently, to the point where I couldn't breathe. So I have to say, that is the first time that I can recall where I had a panic attack, something that I would label as a panic attack. And I can tell you, I'm here to tell you, I'm not a fan of it at all. And why, at almost 55, why now? Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you. Maybe you've experienced something like that, or if you haven't and then you do, maybe you can think back on this and go, oh shit, I know what this is. Now, why? Because that's basically what it was with me. It was like, oh shit, is this what I think it is? And why? So, all right. Well, that's going to be it for this episode. I do not know if I'll have another one before Thanksgiving. So just in case I don't, I hope you and your family have a fantastic Thanksgiving. Hopefully, everybody can be cordial. If you have a big family gathering and you've got people of different political persuasions throughout your family, look, keep it like this. Your family, you're all human. You all have wants and desires. You all have opinions. And, except for the racist assholes that might be in your family, love everybody. Be cordial. Be nice. It's a time of getting together and being thankful for what you've had, the year you've had, and just enjoy each other's company. Great food. And, if you're into sports, I guess football games and all that other kind of stuff. And then don't go nuts on Black Friday. Just don't. If you can shop local. But let's not have any of those 5 o'clock morning deals where people getting trampled and getting injured and even killed. Let's don't do that. That's not what you want anytime, but you definitely don't want it during the holiday season for sure. So if I don't speak to you before then, happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, and I'll talk to you soon. This has been a production of Tifton Media Works. Check out all our podcasts by visiting TiftonMediaWorks.com.